Close your eyes and honestly say, when you hear ancient Africa, what do you imagine on a plate? Emptiness? A couple of roots? Mistake. They ate what we today call superfoods and pay exorbitant prices for. Grains most people haven't even heard of. Fonio, teff, African rice before Asian rice arrived. Sorghum, which survived droughts when wheat would simply die. Smoky porridges, flatbreads on clay plates, millet beer, honey that fermented and hit your head better than wine. Sauces not from tomatoes, they didn't exist then, but from baobab leaves and cola nuts. Shepherds mixed milk and blood, not out of savagery, but to survive without slaughtering livestock. Fried locusts, crunchy protein, not yuck. Termite mushrooms the size of a plate. And here's the question. Why have half of these crops disappeared from our tables, and then we rediscover them in trendy cafes? What did a Nubian warrior eat? What did a fisherman on the Nile have for breakfast? And what did a caravan driver chew in the Sahara between sips of salt water? Stay tuned in a minute. You'll look at your ordinary cereal and think, I've been eating African heritage all this time without knowing. Let's go. Let's start with the fact that Africa is not one continuous savanna with starving people, as we are often shown. It's a continent the size of China, the USA, India, Europe, and Japan combined. And each region had its own culinary tradition, as rich and diverse as French or Italian. Just imagine, 5,000 years ago, when Europe was still hunting mammoths, Egypt was already baking 40 kinds of bread. 40. And you thought the baguette was the height of inventiveness? Let's begin our journey from the north of the continent. Ancient Egypt is not just pyramids and mummies, but a real gastronomic superpower of its time. Did you know that beer was considered the main drink there, but not the beer we know now? Egyptians made it from barley, added dates for sweetness, and drank through straws to avoid grain particles. Imagine Pharaoh Tutankhamun sitting on a golden throne and sipping beer through a reed tube. Not such a majestic image, right? And what about bread? Egyptians were true masters of bread making. They baked bread in clay molds, added honey, dates, figs, and even lotus. Yes, the same flour we see in ancient frescoes. Its seeds were ground into flour and used for baking. Now think, when was the last time you ate lotus bread? Never. That's exactly my point. Let's move now to Nubia, an ancient kingdom south of Egypt. Nubians were known for their ability to grow dura, type of sorghum that could survive in the harshest conditions. From it, they made not only porridge and flatbreads, but also an alcoholic drink called marisa. This drink was so important that archaeologists find special vessels for its preparation in virtually every ancient Nubian home. Imagine, evening, a bonfire, and the whole village gathers together to taste freshly brewed marisa. The social networks of that time, only instead of like sips from a shared bowl. And do you know what Saharan nomads ate? No, not sand, as one might think. They had a real culinary masterpiece. Aish. This is a flatbread that was buried in hot sand for baking. Imagine, you're walking through the desert, stopping for a rest, making a fire, and while the camels rest, you bury the dough in the sand. In half an hour, you have hot bread ready, which you can dip in camel milk or honey, if you're lucky enough to find a hive. By the way, about honey, it was harvested not only from bees, but also from stingless Melipona bees, which make honey with a sour taste. Would you try such honey in a trendy restaurant now? Let's move to West Africa, where millet and sorghum reigned. These grains were so important that entire cultures formed around them. Fonio, the oldest millet that was grown in the region more than 5,000 years ago. It was called the food of the gods and the grain of life. And for good reason. It contains more protein and amino acids than rice or wheat. And now nutritionists are rediscovering it and selling it at gold prices in health food stores. Ironic, isn't it? But man does not live by grains alone. In the forests of Central Africa, cola nuts were gathered, the same ones from which Coca-Cola was later made, although the modern drink has long since removed them. These nuts were chewed for energy and endurance. Imagine, instead of a morning espresso, a bitter cola nut. Would you try replacing your latte with such a treat? And what about protein? Where did ancient Africans get meat? In the savannas, they hunted antelopes and zebras, but this was more of a festive food. The everyday source of protein was often insects. Yes, the same ones that many of us wrinkle our noses at in disgust. Termites, locusts, beetles, all these were valuable food sources. And you know what? In terms of protein content, 100 grams of locusts exceed 100 grams of beef. So who's primitive now, huh? In East Africa, especially among the Maasai and other pastoral peoples, the practice of mixing blood and milk was common. Sounds wild, but it's actually a brilliant invention. Blood was taken from a living animal by making a small incision in the neck, collecting a little, and mixing it with milk. The result was a nutritious cocktail rich in protein and iron, while the animal remained alive and continued to give milk. Ecological, economical, and nutritious. Modern vegans are giving a standing ovation. And fish? In the Nile Valley and around African lakes, fish was the staple of the diet. It was dried, cured, smoked, salted in short, preserved in all possible ways. Tilapia, now served in fancy restaurants, was the common food of Nile fishermen 4,000 years ago. They baked it in clay with herbs, and when the clay hardened, they broke it. The fish was ready, and the scales remained on the clay mold. Genius, isn't it? No foil, no baking pans, all natural and biodegradable. Now let's talk about fruits. No, there were no bananas in ancient Africa, as many think. They came from Southeast Asia much later. But there were dates, figs, watermelons. Yes, watermelon is an African plant, wild berries, and, of course, baobab. Baobab fruits contain 6 times more vitamin C than oranges. They made tart drinks from them, which perfectly quenched thirst in the hot climate, and baobab leaves were used like spinach boiled, stewed, added to soups, and all this thousands of years before someone coined the term superfood. And salt? How did they extract this most valuable mineral? In the Sahara, there were entire salt caravans, hundreds of camels loaded with salt slabs, crossing the desert to deliver this white gold to the cities of West Africa. Salt was so highly valued that in some regions it was used as currency. Imagine, you go to the market not with a wallet, but with a bag of salt. Want to buy a goat? That will cost you 5 salt slabs, please. Spices and seasonings deserve special attention. Ethiopian berbera mixture of chili, ginger, cardamom, and other spices was used even in ancient times, and the famous ras el hanout, a mixture of more than 20 components, was known in North Africa long before the arrival of the Arabs. These mixtures not only gave flavor to food, but also helped preserve it in hot climates, having antibacterial properties. Smart, isn't it? And no E-index preservatives. As for sweets, honey was the main sweetener. It was collected not only from bees, but also from other insects. And in North Africa, they made desserts from dates, figs, and nuts, which in taste were not inferior to modern candies. Halva, which we know now, has ancient Egyptian roots. Just imagine, 4,000 years ago, someone was already enjoying sweet halva, washing it down with beer from date palms. And finally, drinks. Besides beer, in Africa, they made wine from palm sap, honey, fruits. In Ethiopia, coffee was brewed long before it became known in Europe, and in West Africa, they drank a beverage made from cola nuts, which invigorated no less than modern energy drinks. And all this without dyes, preservatives, and artificial flavors. So what happened to this richest culinary heritage? Why have we forgotten about fonio, teff, sorghum, and other ancient grains? Why did we trade nutritious insects for fast food? Colonization, globalization, climate change. All played their part, but mainly we lost connection with our roots, with what our ancestors ate thousands of years ago. But not all is lost. Now we are witnessing a revival of interest in traditional African products. Chefs around the world are discovering teff, fonio, baobab, Nutritionists praise their nutritional properties, and maybe soon we will all be having fonio porridge for breakfast, teff flatbreads for lunch, and washing it all down with a baobab drink. Now let's summarize. Ancient African cuisine is not primitive gathering and hunting, as many think. It's a complex, diverse, and incredibly adaptive food system that allowed people to survive and thrive in a wide range of conditions, from deserts to rainforests. It's a cuisine that used local resources most efficiently, leaving no ecological footprint. It's a cuisine that we can and should learn from today. What do you think about this? Have you ever tried dishes of traditional African cuisine? Which ancient products would you like to try? Write in the comments. I'm really interested to know your opinion. And if you liked this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. There are many more fascinating stories ahead about how people ate in different parts of the world. And next time we'll go to, well, let's just say, a place where food was not just nourishment, but a true art. Art that changed the world. Remember, we don't just eat history, we create it every day at our dining table. Until next time.